got something just
Tomatoes.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave.
money,
Disuse.
infidelity,
Singles in the church.
and more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.
And of course, a good evening to all of our Sky family everywhere. And of course, welcome to Marriage Mentors on this 12th day of the month of September. Good evening, Mrs. Mahon.
Good evening to you.
And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm jazzy.
Yes. Very good.
That's if it's only rasp in the voice. I'm jazzy.
And the smoke. What a time. But it is our pleasure to be here with you this evening, saying good evening to all of you, touching base, letting us know that you are ready and you are here. We always encourage your participation, not just your expectation, but your participation in these segments. Yeah. So don't just be a listener, but be a participant in the program. And not just because you want to hear yourself or just that we want to hear from you, but your contributions are valid. Yeah. Your experience is valid. And we want to delve into it, not just for sharing your business sake, but for the value of everyone. When we share our experiences,
Don't necessarily have a contribution that you feel comfortable to share with us. At least send a WhatsApp stating, I am here, I'm locked on, I'm listening. Because we always meet people afterwards and then they say, I always listen to Marriage Mentors and I remember when you said this and I remember when you said that. It's like, how come I don't know you? Why don't I know you?
We didn't know you were listening. So feel free to reach out. And as per usual, for those of you who are interested in counseling, you can always reach out to us via email. Send us an email via Loveand Marriage TT, LOVEAND Marriage TT at gmail.com. Yeah. And we'll work out the details. Hi, Keish. Good evening to you. So, and as per usual, when sending us sensitive info, please state it before your message so we know that it is sensitive info that you don't particularly want on air. But what we try to do is go very anonymous so we don't share all your personal details back and tie them to you. So we can get the value of the situation without your name. Yeah. So just put a little note, probably in caps, private or anonymous. Yeah, put anonymous so that we know it's an anonymous comment. But sending us stuff that is not for on air while we're doing a program on air, it's a little difficult. Yeah. For us to cipher through that, because we're going to read the comments, right? We're going to read the messages coming in. So if you are intent on not having it mentioned on it, don't send it now. But if you prefer that it be anonymous and you'd like it shared, then feel free, but make a note especially for it to be anonymous. So just put sensitive above the thing in caps, sensitive or anonymous, so that we know that it's but if it's a voice note that you're sending, then voila. Everybody know it's you, right? So understand that's the terrain and the territory that we're heading into. So we're discussing a very heavy topic, and I say heavy because um, of the nature of it when it comes to any kind of relationship.
Mhm.
And our topic this evening is
Manipulation in relationships.
manipulation in relationships. And we wanted to ask a question or two before we get into the material to hear from some of our Sky family. Um, what was the question? Well, let's go with the first one.
Yeah. The first question is, have you ever been in a manipulative relationship?
Mhm. So send us your messages. Have you ever been in a manipulative relationship? Um, yes or no? And probably give us a brief synopsis of why you say it was manipulative. Yeah. Because you know, manipulation is something that um could be emotionally terrorizing um for the receiver
Yeah.
of the manipulation. So you want to be, and we'll also get into particular things, how to deal with it, how to
Mhm.
recognize
Mhm.
it. For some people, they don't even know they're being manipulated, and that's part of a big part of it. Yeah. So
And to answer the question, you're sending your responses to WhatsApp 333, well, via WhatsApp 333-9950. That's the number in case you do not have it. Yes, it's 333-9950. So let us know, have you ever been in a manipulative relationship? And if yes, just give us a brief reason as to why you said that
you were in a
you were
what
in.
qualifies
Mhm.
you to say that it was a manipulative relationship. Saying hi to Jenny, Charisse, good evening to you.
Whether um the guy, or if you're a guy, if it's the girl, she used to stick you in your eye and force you to see things her way, things like that. Yeah. I hope that we don't get messages like that though. That actually happened. It was just, yeah.
over
That's a
the
fast stretch though.
over
For
the top
yeah,
example
yeah.
of what manipulation
Hmm.
is.
And in case you missed last session and the sessions before that, feel free to check them out on YouTube. Just type of Marriage Mentors and you'll see us there. Um, we haven't gotten a chance to upload all the episodes, but
From beginning, but quite a few of them are there.
yes, we have quite a few there.
Marcia, good evening to you. That's Marcia in Arima. So we're asking the question, have you ever been in a manipulative relationship? And why would you say it was manipulative? What about it was that way for you?
And then the other parts of the question was okay, if it is you were in a manipulative relationship, um what type of manipulation is okay, or is it's acceptable?
Is there a time that
Yeah.
manipulation is acceptable in a relationship?
Mr. Granger, good evening to you.
Thank you so much. So, two questions. Have you ever been in a manipulative relationship? And why would you say that it was manipulative? And the next question is, um, at any point, is manipulation acceptable? All right, we have someone saying, good night. I was in a manipulative relationship for 3 years. It was also my first relationship. He was unfaithful, and every time I found out that he was doing so, he made me believe that I caused him to step out on me. Wow. Saying, I do not go out with him. I do not do things that the other girls would do, etc. Unfortunately, because it was my first relationship, he made me believe I was the issue. Interesting. All right. Someone said, thing just switch, yes. Saying hi to Denise in Curep. All right, we have another message here. I think so, because my husband was very bossy. Okay. What he says goes. And what he does is okay. Mm. Mm. I love this very important and interesting topic on marriage mentors. I'll be listening. So, all right. So, yes, you'll be listening. I'm hoping to get your view as well, your comments and questions as well inside of this segment. It's good to listen, yes, but we love your participation. All right, we have another message. I don't know why WhatsApp is being a little manipulative this evening. Good night, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. No, 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 no. Manipulation is a no-no. All right. And when you say manipulation is a no-no, in terms of you're responding to part two, which is question 2, which is manipulation acceptable at any point? Is it acceptable at any time? Hi, Miss Nola. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Glad to have you with us. So we're asking, well, as we're dealing with the topic, we're just getting started, and we're dealing with the topic manipulation. We're asking 2 questions. Have you ever been in a manipulative relationship? And 2, is there at any point in time that manipulation is acceptable? All right. She says, no, at no time it is acceptable. All right. So you were made to believe that everything you did was also wrong. All right. Manipulation is not acceptable. All right. Okay. Okay. Very good. So we have a quite a large consensus that manipulation is never acceptable. But can I ask this question as well? Definitely not acceptable. It can be deeply and dangerously affecting someone who isn't mentally strong. All right, I do get that. But do we know that manipulation takes many different forms, right? And it can be as simple as planning a surprise. That in itself is manipulative. Right? That's why I asked the question, at what point in time is manipulation acceptable?
But nobody considers
That's
that
manipulation.
because that's the nice parts. Nobody wants to consider the nice parts. We want to consider the bad parts, the ugly side of it.
We manipulate children quite a bit.
We're so wrong.
Because I know when we think manipulation, we put it in a particular frame of mind all the time. And while okay, nothing is wrong with doing that, let's look at it broad scope.
Yeah.
Because hi, glad to have you with us. Whenever it happens. Manipulation is more or less you're changing the narrative from reality. You could more or less classify it
Yeah.
as that. Um, you're made to believe something else
Mm-hmm.
or a made up thing based on a particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're made to look at it differently. And once that happens,
Okay.
that
So
in
so
essence,
telling a child asks you to take them somewhere with you.
mhm,
You tell the child, okay, go and get your shoe. The child runs back out to you, well, hoping that you're
they went
still
to get
there,
a shoe and
and
they
the
come back
shoes put on left or right,
and you're not there.
and you're not there. Is that manipulation?
Is manipulation.
Father, forgive us.
It is manipulation. Miss Nola saying that's mental torture. How many times we've seen children cry
And that
when
happened
that
to you.
yes, it happened to me. Um,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you were mentally tortured.
no, but those are the early stages of what manipulation looks like. And it happens.
It's funny.
It is funny because
So which means
and
we
when I
can
say
look at
funny,
that as the good side of manipulation.
what? It being funny?
Yeah.
No, that
As doing a child wickedness like
no,
that.
no.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I am just joking.
So because it's going to be difficult on the child,
Mhm.
and those are
The
the
child
early
develop trust
trust.
issues.
Exactly, that's exactly where I was going. The child will develop trust issues, and those are the
Because
early
even
stages of
this age,
it. Mhm.
you remember that teacher who promised you ice cream when you were what in kindergarten?
Yeah. So those things tend to stay with us, and they fashion how we relate to our future.
And you're almost 80 years now. And
What?
and you still remember that. It's engraved in your mind.
You didn't come here for comedy fest this evening.
I am just being real.
All right. Look at what happening here. You see? You see?
But yeah, I mean, even 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 with that, it starts as small
Mhm,
as that. And while we might think it might be something that we could laugh at, if it is we really sit and consider the damages
mhm.
that we're causing or we would have caused, on top of that, um, especially with a child,
Yeah.
you do it with a child. Is this the kind of future that you're shaping the child for?
Mhm.
The child will just be walking around with trust issues.
True. True.
And we can't be doing that. We can't be doing that. I'm glad that you brought up even the part with a surprise,
Mhm,
because if it is we look at the good
mhm,
and the bad, or what is acceptable and what isn't,
mhm.
then I think we'll get somewhere.
There is also generational manipulation, if we could put it like that. And I say that simply where for the case of one person's experience being passed on. Take for instance, uh, one person, let's say a grandparent, says to uh, their daughter or their grandchild, um, you can't trust your husband all the way,
Hmm.
because this so was my experience.
Yeah.
Or so happened to me.
Mhm.
You're now beginning to actually manipulate that particular person. It's not their experience, it's not their reality. It was yours. It was an experience you had.
And they
And
push that on you and
right.
make you believe now that, so you start to look at your partner differently.
Differently.
Mhm.
That in itself is also a form of
Yeah.
manipulation
Mhm.
that we have to look at the ways that it damages
Yeah.
someone's future. The more you're able now to cause someone to change their perception of reality based on a story, a story that has no bearing on their present state, or the truth that classifies itself as manipulation?
If it is, how do I put this question across, boy? Um, if it is that's, let's say for example, um, let's say for example, you as my husband, right? Um, you want to get your own way,
Mhm.
and when I say your own way, you want things to be done your way,
Mhm.
right? Um, it doesn't matter if it is I have a suggestion,
Mhm.
or I would just like to be involved, it doesn't matter. Let's take me out of the picture, for
Mhm.
example, in terms of being actively involved, right? In whatever you would like to do. Um, and I start to oppose that now. And you decide to use scripture
Mhm.
to back up what you want to do. And in terms of reminding me that you are the head
Mhm.
and I have no say
Mhm.
and I am supposed to submit. Is that manipulation?
This comes down to a matter of right or wrong. And I say right or wrong simply because um, when we go back to whether it is, take for instance, let's say I'm using an example. If I wanted to, let's say, go and make some kind of wild decision,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an issue of right or wrong, because in some cases, um, the husband may have the the right or the authority. Let me put it: the authority to make a decision on his family's behalf, right? And the issue there is not about loading or beating his wife over the head with scripture to give himself quote unquote veto power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that in itself, if he does that, it's manipulation. If it is the wife is her view is violating principle, then, and I say then he can make a decision. Well, this is the way that we're going to go, and that's why I say it has to be based on right or wrong, and that anyone's view is not violating principle,
Mm-hmm.
right? If there is a violation of principle, because you have to look at it based on God's perspective. When I say God's perspective, when it comes to marriage, if they cannot agree, and I say cannot agree, he wants to, and I'm saying he wants to do the right thing, and she does not particularly want to do the right thing. Then in a case like that, he has the authority to still go ahead and do it because he has no other option but to do the right thing. You can't negotiate with the wrong thing. In that regard, I say yes. But if it's a selfish point of view that he's pushing, and he's inconsiderate of his wife and his family,
Mm-hmm.
and proceeds to use scripture to
Mm-hmm.
validate his wrong point of view, that is manipulation.
Yeah.
Right? We clear? We clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have to look at it from a principled point of view. Same thing with the child. You don't tell the child, go and get his slippers for an opportunity to escape. That's essentially what he would have done.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have a voice note here. Let's get that voice note in.
My ex-husband used to manipulate me, and his father, my father-in-law, used to take up for him and tell me, oh, he going here, and oh, he going there, and whatever, whatever. By that time, he going out with all kind of woman here, there, and everywhere. Boy, I wonder when I divorced him, I thank you, Lord, that I did not get any kind of aid or anything like that, because there's all kind of woman he was going with, and he was going out to the country, and he was playing cricket with them and that kind of thing. So thank you, Jesus. I was able to get out of that particular situation. And I messed up with another guy who was quite nice. And he was not like that. Thank you, Jesus. And how do you say he stayed with me for about 42 years and then he died because he was much older than me, about 15 years. But God is good. He was a good person. God is good. So that is my what I have to say tonight.
Thank you so much. All right. So we have someone saying, I've never been in a manipulative relationship, and I don't think anyone should be manipulative. That's manipulated. That's a no-no. Yes, Keisha and Denise. I don't know where Mrs. Mahon get that number from. Someone is saying, why is it that some parents and adults always feel that they are always right concerning their children? When you say always right, what do you mean? Now I kind of have an idea, but just clarify for me, what do you mean? Patsy say she's agreeing with you based on the question that you asked. All right, so just to kind of jump ahead with what that question. Yes, there are some cases that parents take a wrong and strong approach when it comes to parenting, because the fact remains, yes, parents can be wrong. Adults can make mistakes and be wrong. But I think it's difficult, and I say it's difficult when it comes to their own pride to admit that they made a mistake or that they were wrong. And it says that they would have to maybe apologize to the child. And a lot of the times it goes against the mental hierarchy that we have in our minds as to this little person came from me. Why do I have to explain myself?
Yeah.
And that in itself is a form of manipulation. And when you check it back, a lot of the times it's a generational type of manipulation. My parents treated me this way, so therefore this is what I know, and I'm doing the same thing with the child that I now have. Very unfortunate, but it happens.
Okay, when you're disciplining children, right? I am the mother, I am the father, and you wrong, and they right. I find that is so bullying the child because everybody have the rights to, children have their own rights, especially this generation. Understand? And I find manipulation is a very serious, when I say very serious problem in this country, in the whole wide world, but especially in Trinidad.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The severity and seriousness of what manipulation tends to do when it comes to anyone. And out of it, and I say out of it, some parents have been revising their parenting styles. Some parents, my parents had to revise their own because the wrong and strong thing wasn't working. And I say that simply, it takes a lot to break that trend and cycle where you can now navigate. I've heard some counselors saying, don't negotiate with your children. But when you take don't negotiate and put that inside of manipulation, you get wrong and strong. But I'd say don't negotiate on your children and when it comes to right and wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. Don't negotiate when it comes to right and wrong. And that goes both ways. Truth is a double-edged sword. Not just when the child is wrong, but also be man or woman enough to take wrong and correct your own action when it comes to dealing with your children. Because the fact remains, you are an adult and you can make mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, how do you make amends and correct the wrong?
Mhm.
If you don't do it, then you create in your child's mind, this is the way to do adulting. When I grew up, I can't wait till I grew up so I can never be wrong, even if I know I'm wrong. Because that's the message you'll create in your child's mind. Because simply that's the message that was created in your mind by your parents. So we see how the damage continues. So
Yeah.
if you as a parent don't keep yourself in check, do not let your pride ruin your own way or style of parenting, and then ruin your child and their style of parenting, because you don't know if they're going to fix the error in their adult years or just continue as per usual. We don't know how long that will last.
Yeah.
In terms of generations to come. So work out that issue now as best as you can. That's the encouragement there when it comes to parenting children. In dealing with manipulation. All right, so we have a couple comments. Some men pretend to be someone they're not in order to get a foot in the door, and however long later you end up with a cat in the bag. And how do you make amends? Bribe them with food? Hashtag culture. No. No, you're making amends. Let me deal with as we on the parenting thing. How do you make amends? Bribing them with food isn't the issue. It's admitting, just as you would with an adult.
Yeah.
You do the same thing with a child. It's not about negotiating. You're teaching them how to deal with wrong. How do you come back from and heal a relationship? Because what you will end up having is, take for instance, the child is corrected, even though they're in the right, they're perceived as though they're in the wrong simply because there's an age difference between their parent and themselves.
Yeah.
There are many things that can happen there. That child is can't wait till they get into adulthood, which is a whole other topic by itself. Making wrong decisions, being very secretive. So you now have this younger person building an entire thought life and physical life outside of the purview of their parents. And they're now going to make mistakes because they're figuring out the world on their own, simply because it's disconnected and detached because of the manipulative behavior of their parents. If that doesn't change, you now have a parent who is disconnected, but making amends takes the strength and the courage to sit with your child and let them understand, hey, I, as the adult, was wrong here, which heals and also shapes your child for the future in terms of, as an adult, I take responsibility even when I'm wrong. Ultimately, I did wrong. I'm going to own up for it and I'm going to do better moving forward. So if a parent says, okay, well, I realize I'm the one wrong here, you sit and there's nothing wrong with apologizing to your child. Yes, some people can't see that happening. I will never apologize to my child. That is the child, I'm the parent. Okay. So what does that leave when you don't do it? You have an irresponsible little human being who's going to become an irresponsible big human being, because that's the way that you've shown them. And when you start to get it back as the parent, when they do stuff and you
Mhm.
feeling the messy end of the stick, that's the beginning of the end. I don't know why this just come out so. Think back to when you was manipulating them, when you didn't want to take wrong. I don't know why this child come out so. And you're blaming everybody else. The father, he come out just like a father. No, it's you. Right? You don't want those things. You don't want those things to happen. So save yourself. Save yourself the issue and take responsibility even when you're wrong. That does not say you cannot correct the child in future, because you would be seen less of a parent because you apologize. No, it shows strength that yes, even when I am wrong, we want to build a relationship on truth. So, because I'm taking responsibility for when I'm wrong, I can hold you accountable for when you are wrong. Right? This is why some parents cannot correct their children, because they are also at fault for the things that their children are now doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we've always talked about that when dealing with spiritual things. Or we know the saying, I'll use a very local saying that we all know too well: you're sending Satan to correct sin.
Yeah.
If you are the bearer of the same sin, how hard it will be for you to correct something in someone that you are guilty of.
Who is the accuser of the brethren?
Right. All right. So to the next comment, some men pretend to be someone that they're not until they get a foot in the door. So I think we dealt with some of this when we we're talking about red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times where that is the case, now we understand that people, they put up an act. And the recommendation there is, when you're during that time, when they're trying to get their foot in the door, make that a nice waiting period. A lot of the times persons get into a relationship and they're not thinking with their brain, they're thinking with other different parts. And that's the time we encourage you to think with your brain, think things through, and allow that person to experience different environments so you see how they respond. It's only so long the manipulation can stand up. The more comfortable they get, the less they feel the need to have those walls up, and the true self will jump out, and then you can make a decision whether or not you will let them get a foot in the door.
Yeah.
I think the issue is that we let down our antennas a little too quickly, and give people the benefit of the doubt too quickly. And I say too quickly simply because you make yourself emotionally and physically available to someone that you don't know yet. Yeah. So those are the times to be careful. All right. So let me see. When you have a husband like the one I had, would make you want not to fall in love again. When he get vexed, he driving like a madman and a demon. Thank God I left him. Kneeling down in the road begging me to come back. And I said, hell no. My advice there is, yes, one man did it, but not all men. All men are not the same, just like mutual funds. Yes, when the child don't want to drink.
So you didn't see that video. You didn't see, and he's so.
No, I didn't. I didn't read the whole thing.
I was just waiting.
Mickey, it's something else. You know? Yes, those are the issues from since then. But I wouldn't say that is that is and don't get me wrong here. Yes, it was a drastic measure that our parents used, but it was for our own good. I don't think we can pour some of those things into manipulation. We were forced to do some things because some things are non-negotiable. And I say some things when it comes to right or wrong. Your child cleaning their room, that's non-negotiable. You don't want a nasty child. When it comes to
What is that feeling?
what do you mean?
Go and clean your room. Never had a room. I never had my own room.
No, but those are things that
Yeah.
some people go through, and some children may interpret that to be manipulation, but it's not manipulation. When long time they giving you purge from the time school closed and just before school reopen, you get the purge, and the swizzle stick right next to the thing you have to take, or when it's time to take 7 Seas cod liver oil. Nobody liked it, especially before they brought the gel pearls thing, and you had to take the liquid gesso going down your throat. Nobody liked it.
I never really had to go through all of that.
We'd say thank God, eh?
Yeah, I know. I'm blessed. I was not troublesome child. It's only people like you who give trouble
you
had
you
to
had to take
receive all those
no,
things.
no. Let's get to the
I
reason.
know I'm very familiar with the swizzle stick, but that was just like a threat.
Well, that's essentially what it
Yeah,
was.
they didn't have to
But some children tested, push the envelope,
they
and they
didn't
got
have to apply the rod of correction.
some children
That's a
tested.
good child.
No, not necessarily so.
So what would you say? I was just spoiled? No, I wasn't.
You didn't have to think. Your parents said to you, eat it or lay down beside it. Parents like ours would tell you, do die or run away. I'm making sure you ain't die, and I'm making sure you ain't run away. So you have no other option but to do. Very true, Red flag is you have to see red flags when they come up. So let's jump into
I think there was another message there that you ended up
which one?
closing off. No. The second one.
Let me see. Did I miss a message?
I think you did.
Manipulation can really destroy someone's lifetime and lifestyle. Someone who likes to be a controlled person is manipulating. For me, being
Is a question.
essentially yes, that is a question. Yes, the answer is yes. For me, being in a manipulative relationship with a mother or family members and friends, I think this is why I'm single until better can be done. When you say until better can be done, is it that you are at the place where you view people generally through the eyes of what your experiences were? Or have you been able to shed those perspectives and you just have not found someone yet? Because that's two different things. That your past is still telling you that, and because of it, you're now fearful that you don't want to go back to that kind of thing because you're still viewing the world through that. Or have you really shed that perspective, let it go, and you have not really found someone just yet? Which one is it? Ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at some signs that someone is a manipulator. Right? So the first sign is they share information selectively. They share information selectively.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, they withhold some,
Mm-hmm.
right? They choose to tell you whatever they feel to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And good evening to you, Suzanne. Yeah. Yeah, they pick and choose what they want to share with you, right? And that is a sign of manipulation or a manipulator.
Mm-hmm.
You can continue with the message, I think.
All right. She's saying, I'm guilty concerning taking my seventh season. All right. I used to bite it up. Oh, you were very zealous about taking them. You took more than the dosage. Okay, very nice. Interesting.
Yeah. So the first point, they share information selectively. The second point,
Simply that they're trying to control the narrative
yes.
of the situation.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The second point is they crave approval beyond all else.
Mm-hmm.
They crave approval beyond all else. Do we have a message there?
All right. Keisha's saying half truths based on
Mm-hmm.
managing the information. Um, all right. Someone is saying have not found someone yet is still fair. Yes, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
you have to consider whether or not you are perceiving things based on the past. Um, so therefore, if you're operating in fear of finding yourself in a manipulative relationship, then it says that you are still at that place. And many a times we can pour or have the Peter Paul situation happening, Peter paying for Paul and Paul paying for all, where everybody else now has to pay for something that family or friends did. And if we're not at the point where now that shedding process or healing process from that or those experiences, if we're not going through those things first to forgive the person, also to not be naive about it. And I say naive simply because manipulators, their handiwork always works on a particular kind of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It always works on a particular kind of person. Someone who recognizes or understands how a manipulator works, um, it wouldn't last long.
Mm-hmm.
The person would see it for what it is and find some way to deal with the issue. And I say find some way, either they don't take them on, um, tell them move along, whether it is a relationship or not, they see it from beforehand. And it's a particular kind of personality that it always works on. Manipulation always works on. Um, and sometimes we can ask ourselves, how come that is? Or someone might be saying, let me put it this way, someone might, how I does always end up with this kind of person? There's something in you that attracts them. And I say attracts them, not just that you're calling them, but there is a state of existence in your own mind that when it happens, it works. And many a times it's based on your own self-esteem. And remember what we talked about or how we defined self-esteem in a previous session. It talks about your sense of self-respect and regard that you have for you, right? How you regard yourself. If it changes, the less someone can manipulate you. Yeah, the less someone can manipulate you. Many a times, what tends to happen is that we never um, are able to confront those who manipulated us. And I say confront or change how we feel or how we perceive, how we relate to those persons. Because a lot of the times, those persons are still around because it's family and friends from long time. With friends you can change, you can't really change your family, simply because they're part of you,
Yeah.
right? And in as much as you try to cut them out of your life, there is always that measure of connection that you always still carry. And many a times persons try to compensate for that without shedding and healing. And you tend to be a very rough person on the other end, but you're not that with those persons that are accustomed to manipulating. And before you know it, you end up becoming the manipulator on the other side because you've overcompensated, never really found the balance in your
Yeah.
own personality. And now you become the manipulator in another space. That
right.
is a dangerous thing.
Very,
Yeah.
very dangerous.
All right. So the person says, I've never been in a manipulative relationship, but my childhood and growing up was not as easy for me. So I just try to be very super careful of who I'm allowing into my space and life. True, that's good. But I'm also going to put to you, ensure that you're healing and shedding those perspectives. Yeah. Or shedding and healing in that order. I totally understand. I totally understand. That's fine. That's totally fine. Anonymity is the name of it. All right. So back to point
Yeah.
number.
So the next point, their behavior varies greatly depending on who is present.
Mhm.
Yeah, their behavior varies greatly depending on who is
On
present.
who is present.
Mhm.
So again, which
They
comes
put on
back
an
an
act.
act. So this is what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to experience the person in different environments, so you can see and recognize, okay, whether this person is consistent or they're not. Um, whether it's you alone with your family and friends, their friends, get to know the spaces and how they behave so that you're not caught with red flags. Um, and I say caught with red flags so that you can see them and say bye bye to
Yeah.
them long before they become your own. So again, you're seeing the things stacking up and how we can avoid some of these issues. Sorry if you already dealt with this. How do we deal with manipulators? Well, we're actually going to get to that, so you're in time.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything much.
Okay, thank you so much, Hayo. In terms of the shedding and healing, um, just to ensure that you are not seeing your future based through the eyes or through the lens of what you
Past
experienced in the
experiences,
past.
yeah.
Yeah. Don't let your past interrupt your present and your future. If that is happening, then the manipulation continues. But you have now taken on that manipulation and you're executing it for yourself. Yeah. So be careful that that isn't the thing that's happening to you now. Because if I'm being honest with you, I hear it. So you want to to analyze and be very, very open and honest with yourself and walk through that, navigate that quite well. Because, yes, you do want to have I hear your desire for a better tomorrow, but it's hard to let go of what happened. And that's simply because of the fear that's operating. You've now taken over that process. And I want to encourage you to ensure that you make sure that you take the steps to heal and to shed that which happened so that you can view your future correctly and have the power to choose, because that's what you have, the power to choose.
Yeah. So on to the next point. They are likely to feel angry or resentful when things don't go their way. Like one of our listeners was sharing not so long ago that their husband, their ex-husband, if it is things did not go
His way.
yeah, his way, it was a horse of a different color you were seeing.
Yeah.
And out of that, you saw an aggressive driver. So your life was at risk now because
Things wasn't
the
going.
person did not get their way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another sign that you should look out for, because that's never a good thing.
One of the things you always want to check is that somebody is stable enough. And this is one, I think we mentioned this some time ago. You want to ensure that you are stable enough and that the person that you're intending on getting married to, or even if you are married, I want couples to kind of sit and look at themselves, because we've talked about this even in our own marriage, where you want to ensure that you are making those adjustments so that you are consistent. And I say consistent, if something happens in one area of your life, if there is spillover, there is manipulative potential. Right? I shared the story with someone who I used to work with. And when we came in, how she used to behave, and she changed the entire atmosphere of the office and stuff like that. And one day I made a decision, hey, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I'll be my happy sunshine self. And I didn't take her on. I paid her no mind after that concerning her sour behavior. She took it personally, but I recognized it for what it was. Okay, something happened. The dog died. That's not everybody in the office dog. Okay, I understand that you're going through something, but you don't have to spoil your entire day. When you go back to the situation, go back to the situation. You don't take it with you everywhere. Oh, my dog died, and everybody has to be sour. No, don't sour everybody else's day. Because something happened in your personal life that is completely unrelated. And it's not being sensitive. But what you want to do is ensure that you're able to function at your best, even though something else happened. And you go into an environment that is unrelated. When we're in teaching public speaking, one of the things, you go and you stand in front of an audience. The audience doesn't care whether or not your dog died. The audience doesn't care whether or not your house flooded. How many times, take for instance us, we were dealing with flooding all too often, and nobody knew. Nobody knew. We were taking turns cleaning up water. Nobody knew.
Until eventually we started, we told there were three listeners from the Sky family.
Every time rain fell,
they would call.
how will you go in? How will you making out with all this water?
But we don't ever go saying, well,
Well,
we're dealing with this, we're dealing with that.
yeah, we don't come on here. Well, I ain't feeling too good today, I was cleaning up water. No, that nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's a fact.
Because at the end of the day, there's always someone going through worse than you.
worse than you. And apart from that, you're being paid to do a job.
Mhm.
And if you're a pastor, take for instance, you go into a church, and if you're a pastor, yes, the life of a pastor is very rough. And I say rough because he has to help encourage everybody.
When he feels discouraged,
Yes, and he feels discouraged. And no matter what kind of discouragement he's going through, when it's time to minister, when it's time to give, he has to show up and do the role that he's been called to do, right? You don't want to be met with, if you go to him for answers, you don't want to be met with dysfunction.
True.
For him to tell you, well, girl, suck it up. Yes, I going through worse than you. You want to be able to get good advice.
yeah.
Or when you go there, you don't want to feel like, well, it's better. Well, some people, that might be a tactic that some people use because they're thinking they're the only one. In a case like that,
Mhm.
you share with them in a very wise way. Okay, if you think what you're going through is bad, but here it is. I am here, still making myself available, and I'm showing up. Here is what I'm going through, and I'm able to encourage you no matter what.
Yeah.
So don't be Debbie Downer because you're going through this particular thing and it's affecting the rest of your life. So in a case like that, don't be the one who manipulates the environment. Someone saying, I know some people who do that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And some people really do make that their thing. That's their way of life. That's their mode of operation. Okay, I do get you. But a little checking is always good. Honest review, self-inflection, those things are always helpful. Yes, indeed, you will have to. Because yes, we do see some things just in interfacing with persons, and long before they tell their story tells, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their story tells, and because of our experience, and we have been ministering and counseling people, um, a lot of the times what we see the signs, um, and when a lot of times when you say it, it's confirmed. But that don't mean, well, we begin to treat you differently. And again, some things you have to keep separate. Some things you have to keep separate. Only deal with it when the time comes to deal with it. And it doesn't affect everything else. So even with, take for instance, parenting, um, the ability to deal with one particular situation. Like I remember correcting my nieces and nephews growing when they were a lot smaller. Something one of them did, and I scolded her. And right after that, I told her, let's continue playing because we were playing. She did something wrong. I scolded her and we went back to playing. And she looked at me with this confused look. And I said to her, not because you did something wrong, I now hate you. We deal with the issue and we move on. Life continues. What I expect from you is that you deal with that issue in your own time, but life continues.
I remember there was a time, yeah, I experienced that. I experienced that. And the question I asked was, are you mad? Yeah, because I want my space. Up to now, in my adulthood, I want my space. Even if and me having my space is not saying, well, I don't understand what happened, and I don't deserve this and that and the other. No, it's not even that. I just don't want to see her. And that's just it. I just want my space to be able to not have any issues with you.
Mhm.
You understand? So we can have an argument. We deal with the arguments, trash out everything. But sometimes I might still need to pull back a bit
Nobody says,
and
nobody's saying
just
that.
ensure that make sure you have no No unresolved issues with
No,
you
I'm not saying
because it
that.
could come up
that
later on.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your space. What I communicated there is that life continues, one, and that two, you're not hated because you were corrected.
Mhm.
Yes, correction happens. It's a part of life.
But I think though, with that example, it's still easier with a child
It is.
than
It
an
is.
adult because remember the child will be interested in playing and all the exciting things. But when they come to their senses in their adulthood, it's like what I did there not going to work in my adulthood.
No, not just that, but we have to consider your upbringing was very different.
Mhm.
So what you're accustomed to in terms of dealing with it, you seeing it in your adulthood would be very different from her seeing it in her
Yeah.
childhood,
Mhm.
because that's how part of the environment she grew
Mhm.
up with. It'll be very different with you. You may
Yeah.
need some space to
Mhm.
say, all right, well, let me deal with this particular situation emotionally and then decide if I'm still in love with this person. The child is still learning, very formative years. So the child would be able to understand even in the going moment that, hey, uncle isn't vexed with me.
I remember I was on the phone with you sometime a few years
Mhm.
ago, and he was seeing about your nephew and something he did. He was just talking and talking and talking, and then nobody was listening.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I heard some licks passing on the phone, and after that, I heard him saying, "Thank you for taking care of me." And I said, "Child, when you get wiser and you get older, you'll understand the stripping as you just said."
That was the
Because
stupidest.
to him, it made sense at the time, and it's like because remember, a child heart is so pure
No, for
and it's so
him,
genuine.
he understands that even though I'm corrected, uncle does not hate me.
But try it now. Try it
No,
now. You see
he
now
still,
at,
he
the, at
still,
this
he
age,
still understands
at
that.
this, you would hope that he still
No,
understands
I
that.
do believe that he understands that.
But in terms of the difference in a child
Mhm.
and an adult, it's two totally different things. So how do we remind the adult now?
Just want to jump on the share.
Because I find like how I used to look at it before was a form of abuse,
Mhm.
right? Because that's how I viewed it
Mhm.
before. But now in my adulthood, I mean, nobody gonna beat me. But in terms of you might have an argument with probably you and I might have some kind of misunderstanding, and we would have to find common ground
Mhm.
somewhere eventually because you can't go and prolong stuff. That's never a healthy thing.
Dealing like that's like taking an issue,
Mm.
one particular issue. And I remember Pastor T gave this example, I think in the marriage seminar. Um, if your car has a flat tire, do you
Yeah.
just get rid of the entire car or do
Mhm.
you change the tire?
Mhm.
You take out the spare, you put it on, and then you go sort out the tire.
Mhm.
And but it doesn't really stop the operation of the
Yeah.
car.
Mhm.
Doesn't stop the car really from
No, you
going
just
forward. You
fix it and you keep going.
right. So it's the same thing. And I think a lot of the times we let one issue take over the whole of how we feel, even in terms of relationships. If we're able to then deal with that particular issue and not let it affect the bigger players in the relationship, whether or not this person really loves me, whether my marriage is now hanging in the balance because of it.
So again, this is where communication comes in.
Right. Not just
Mhm.
communication, but how we perceive the thing.
Yeah.
Whether it is an adult or a child, how we assimilate that information is very important, because with the child you can teach the child that issue, but for the adult they too have to, whether they are treated that way, they have to now begin to interpret it that
Yeah.
way, because they're thinking
Mhm.
one against time that has
Yeah.
already happened, but also trying to be appropriate for where they are.
Mhm.
The child is learning as they go along, OJT, and also creating mental patterns for future. The adult has to undo patterns and create new ones.
Mhm.
because they've already seen stuff, lived through stuff. So if according to the adult, what they've seen is very different from that, and everything that they've seen so far is to take an issue and let it change their
Yeah.
entire life. So I now hate my parents because they corrected me
Yeah.
about a dirty room. I now hate my parents because they gave me a curfew because I didn't know how to manage my own
Mhm.
time. If we begin to see, well, I hate my parents because they
Well, we're
corrected
just
me.
preparing you to be more disciplined
Right.
and helping you to be clean so that you wouldn't have a nasty house when you own one.
We've seen that happen many times where
Mhm.
children say, well, I hate you for this and I hate you for that. Growing up, them words come out your mouth, you're losing some teeth. Very well.
I don't agree with saying that.
The backside of a hand, you would have get it. So we couldn't even think that. But I think then and now, because I think a lot of the times parents used to give even after they correct, give children the silent treatment, which communicates to them the issue is how they relate to them entirely. And I think that is something that would have to change, because the moment we deal with an issue and we change how we relate to the child outside of that,
Mhm.
that communicates the issue is how my relationship is
Yeah.
with you. Yeah. But again, it comes from that wanting the space. It comes from what you know, right? And we seeing where those things come from.
Mhm.
If after you're corrected, you're given that silent treatment, you would want your space
Mhm.
because that's what you know. But if it is, you've never really had to, okay, well, as a child, well, you're corrected for an issue and you didn't have that distance away, because that was the pattern that you would have seen as a child. That, okay, I can still involve myself in family stuff, still have fun with my family, even though I was corrected for an issue. That issue is separate and isolated from everything else in the family. So I now have, even in my personal time, to think about what I did in that particular issue. And I know still that my mother loves me, my father loves me, and that I can still go to them for advice and
Yeah.
everything else. If I need something, I could go to them. That 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 issue doesn't change if I have a request. I can make it to them. Because how many times that bears upon our own minds if we think back to our childhood? Well, I did something wrong, so I can't go and ask mommy and daddy for this, even though I need it. My ruler break, I have no pencil, I might get a stupid answer from them. So you begin to now think of them in a particular way, not knowing I was manipulated. Yeah, I had to bring it back around there. But yeah, those are the habits that we grow into adulthood with. That's why I was very deliberate in how I related to my nieces and nephews. And even in prep for when we do have children, how do we not create that mental train of thought that even though we deal with an issue, we correct an issue, it doesn't change how mommy and daddy feel about you. Yes, Denise. It's true. It's true. All right. So next point.
Yeah. Gaslighting.
Ah. Mhm.
Gaslighting. Which is basically what the manipulator
Mhm.
would do to confuse you
Yeah.
and make you believe certain things. And most times in this case, they would make you believe that you are in the wrong.
Yeah. You see, I remember when you do this and it has nothing to do with the situation. It's taking one thing and twisting it around and all kind of thing. Now, unfortunately, gaslighting is always, not always, but in many cases, an attribute that then comes from a victim, right? Victims, a lot of the times, tend to gaslight, right? Um, because they too were manipulated.
Mhm.
Because the paranoia begins to step in, it's easy now to look at a situation that does not exist.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen a woman who was cheated on gets into another relationship and she's now hyper viewing everything that the guy does and now accuses him of cheating? That is essentially gaslighting too. He's not necessarily doing it. He might have a job where he has to relate to people. But if that happens, the hyper viewing of the situation then begins to gaslight. So he's now in the victim, now the accuser's eyes or the manipulator's eyes, can now be very detrimental to where they are. And that can be very problematic because they're now the accusations, shooting the accusations and gaslighting the individual
Yeah.
to make them think that they're the reason why they're now
Mhm.
you're seeing how dangerous it could be. And these are the things we want to ensure that those things are not happening.
Mhm.
That's why I'm saying when it comes to manipulation, it's a very subtle thing sometimes. And we have to be very honest with ourselves to begin.
Very subtle as they come across, very nice at times.
even for the apart from the person who is the victim who is now being manipulated,
Mhm.
you now have to be very wary that you're not adopting those traits,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And whether you have been a victim, ensure that you're not passing those things on, right? Because a lot of, just like rape and a lot of those things, persons who not just rape but molestation in childhood,
Yeah.
a lot of the times when you check the stats, they tend to become
It's true.
perpetrators.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with manipulation, right? Because when you look at it, the fundamentals of molestation is manipulation, right? And it may not be sexual, but it can also be mental,
Mhm.
where you begin now to change the narrative and the view of the actual situations or happenings to make it seem as though it's something else. And you don't want to be, even if that, especially where that is the case, you've been a victim, that you're not beginning to now graduate to perpetrator. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next sign is passive aggressive behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in case you're wondering, it's just an example of passive aggressive behavior. They might make a sarcastic comment or even a joke that can later be dismissed. And they would say, well, I was just making a joke, or you take everything too serious. Where deep down inside,
They were throwing shade.
mhm,
Yeah. So you want to no, we're dealing with things that go under the radar so easy, yeah? Because they become a very normal part of relationships, which shows you how dysfunctional people could be, right? A lot of the times when you look at some relationships, like we were looking at a family recently, babe, where they're, well, in front of people, guests, their sense of family humor was sarcasm.
mhm. Oh,
Right? Sarcasm and old talk and
story of my
threats, right? We were looking at a family recently and we were say, oh my God,
make my
this.
head start to scratch. Oh, Jesus, deliver us.
And these are the things that become so very normal we're not even aware a lot of the times of the damage that it's causing and the distance and wedges that it's driving within the family context or relationship context. And for it not to happen, you've got to be more sensitive of your own actions and also how the actions of others are affecting you. Because if it's happening too long, you become unaware of the way that it in terms of the processes of the effects, and you just react. You just begin to react. And before you know it, sarcasm meets sarcasm. And yes, you might even develop a way to laugh about it, but the laugh isn't genuine. The joy isn't genuine. It becomes a very deceptive war. You all are having a war, but smiles on your face. It's like, I could kill you, but and those are things you don't want.
That's real.
To reach that stage. You're smiling, you're wearing a smile, but it's war behind that smile. And sadly, those are the things that becomes a norm in many families. Yeah. Just now we have a comment. Someone says, I could write a book about my marriage. Every time my mother-in-law came to my home, my husband started acting like a demon. Blessings to you as well, Carrie Ann. Thank you so much for letting us know that you're locked on and listening. Interesting experiences you had there.
So,
Mm-hmm.
the next sign,
Mm-hmm.
love bombing.
Love bombing.
Mhm.
You had to clarify that one first.
So, love bombing
Mhm.
is where, for example, I
Mhm.
would flood you
Uh-huh.
with gifts,
Mhm.
with words,
Mhm.
right? So I'm giving you gifts. I'm telling you the sweetest things, right? But I don't really mean it. I am looking,
Some means.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And on top of that, I have a motive.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see. So you know how we say, this person know your weak spots, or this person know what will hit you the most, where it will hit you the hardest, right? So love bombing is like that.
Relationship blackmail.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes, you could put it like that. You could put it like
Yeah.
that. It's relationship blackmail,
Mhm.
love bombing, right? So you're flooding the person with
Mhm.
the sweetest things, but you're really trying to find out the soft spots
Mhm.
so that they will come after.
Your
and hit-
soft spot.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things too
That's reverse psychology. That's messed up.
which is actually one of the points. Um, you see, even inside of that, it's love bombing can also be played on greedy people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you know you're greedy and you're materialistic, you're prime property and candidate to be love bombed because they will be able to give you what you ask for, anything you ask for. But at the end of the day, when they're ready to pull out the rug from underneath you, yeah, even because whether they were able to get dirt on you or not, because you accepted all the gifts, yeah, you've been fooled.
So don't be greedy. Don't be greedy.
Yeah, I long perfect candidate. Next point.
They
Or-
exploit
Mhm.
your insecurities.
Right, which ties in so well with this previous point. Love bombing or relationship blackmail. They exploit your
Insecurities.
insecurities. So therefore, this is almost like the reverse side of
You know, sometimes I tell you, remember you so and so and so. And if it wasn't for me, so and so and so, but then he'll use that against you.
All the time. Take for instance, let's switch this around because this is actually the reverse of gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
This is gaslighting in reverse. Gaslighting is the manipulator, seeming manipulator, now making someone feel guilty, the innocent being guilty,
Yeah.
right? So that, quote unquote, they are the problem, making them feel as though they are the problem, they're the issue. This one, repeat the point again.
They exploit insecurities.
Right. Exploiting insecurities now is, as I said, is a reverse. So now what they're not necessarily looking at other things, external things. What they're now able to do is show themselves up to be your hero.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Your hero. If it was not for me, you would not have been in this place. So the problems or the challenges, the insecurities that you would have had, I became your savior.
Of you now.
Right. So those are the problems that now arise because of this particular point. So they express themselves or paint themselves in your eyes to be your hero, but not necessarily so. It is so that, and a lot of the times, these are the behind the scene operations as to why some women stay with men. You wonder, you scratch your head about what she's still with he for. He giving her black eye and all of this kind of thing, and just cannot make sense to you as to why. It's because of activities like this is happening behind closed doors. She's been made to feel this guy is her savior, or vice versa, because it happens with the genders mixed as well, where she has made him feel that she's his hero, and if not for her, he's nothing without her.
Yeah.
So if they leave everything behind, and they don't want to lose those things again. Greediness, they're able to play on greed, right? So it's gaslighting in a different kind of way, in the reverse way, if we could put it that way. Ma'am? Next point? Well, we actually
We'll do afterwards.
do it afterward.
Mhm.
All right. Let's continue. Next
I
point.
don't want to break the
The flow. Mhm.
Yeah. They would hold care and attention. So one minute they love bombing.
Yeah.
The next minute they withhold care
Mhm.
and attention. You have a message there?
Someone says, "Ooh, Nelly, this is so many relationships I know of. Sad, sad, sad."
See?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was the next point. They withhold care and attention, which is the opposite to what we would have just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But they have their reasons for doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So it's at this point we could say silent treatment in a relationship is not good. It's not good. I want to encourage couples to practice. Yes, okay, fine. You need a couple hours to deal with how you feel about a particular thing, emotions, flu, and stuff like that. But at the quickest possible time, shed those things and come back to normal. And I say come back to normal to the point where if you still need to discuss it, you can discuss it as adults, but do not let it affect how you relate to one another. That all you're talking, all you're passing one another straight, and this and that and the other, all you're no longer hugging and kissing and stuff like that. We're talking about the married couples here, right? But generally in a family where, let's take this into a familial environment, where you all are not relating to one another, or they stop just being the normal happy family that you should be. And some persons, they never knew what that was, but you moving out from what you knew, don't take that as a norm into your future, please. Yeah, you don't want to carry that dysfunction into your future. Be deliberate about building it differently. too many families are very disconnected and are steady war zones. Yeah. Begin to change that narrative in your home environment, because one of the things we always say um, is that your home should not be a place of war. It should never be a place of war. Your home should be where you are at rest. And for many people, their home is not a place of rest. It's not. So we want to encourage you as best as possible. Build, and that doesn't just happen that way. It's built. It's habits and cultures that you create and hold to. For us, we try as best as possible, even though you have a disagreement, you move, even if you have to come back to that disagreement later when you're not all hype about it and talk about it, but do not let it shift how you relate to one another. Yeah.
Contemptuous attitudes and behavior, right? So you have relentless criticism and berating, inability to argue and fight fairly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they give you the silent treatment, um, and they also become emotionally stingy. Mhm.
What is emotional stinginess?
When you don't want to be emotional to the next person. That's what it is.
You're not sharing emotions. And when I say sharing emotions, you're not giving love and you're not receiving love. Um, Again, those are things you have to be very deliberate about, because they fall into the category of manipulation and control over your relationship. Remember, relationship, um, it's meant to be a free flow of communication, and those things represent obstructions um, in your relationship. Yeah. So consider them to be that, just obstructions, and you want to be able to remove them.
Mhm.
I see a snappy fingers, like.
Now, I was looking at the next point.
Mm-hmm.
Implicit threats,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is they might bring in another person into the mix to justify an opinion or make you feel insecure. Anya, Adrian.
No, this is very different from going to counseling.
Mhm.
Eh? Let's establish that
That's what I
system.
said that. So we have to make sure that we look at it from both sides.
Yes. Because if you are going to counseling, it should be someone both of you are comfortable with. That, and I say comfortable to tell the truth to, and be open and real, because you both want the help. Yes, there are some manipulators who would say, because they don't want to, they would say, they would find every reason not to go. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who, let's say, that friend who will lie for them, right? That friend who will lie for them no matter what.
Okay, so I'll scrap my next point.
I want to say this particular, nah, I don't want to say it. I wouldn't use that too. You know that, well, I'll use part of it. You people know the rest. Bros before? Right. Which essentially sums up. We've seen this too many times. I know,
I told you on many occasions when you're going to say certain things
I didn't say
so
anything.
long before. So the camera will not pick up my eyes going. Like I got shocked.
Right? So we know we've heard that statement before, where they have some friend that is willing to lie for them.
Yeah.
To cover
Always.
up their nonsense, right? And because of that, a manipulator always has that assistant who's willing to lie with them and for them. in cases like that, you want to ensure that you're not finding yourself with someone who's going to be lying. And unfortunately, we've seen that as a trend recently on social media, where the girl or the boy would call their partner's friend and say, well, so not you saw so, and they say, yeah, they're with me. I saw them just now, or they called me just now, this so place, or something like that. And they both, when the person that they're calling about sitting right next to them. That's toxic behavior. That's dysfunctional behavior. You want truthful friends. My wife always tells me, you have to be the one to bust people's files. I said, I'm not
Yes.
lying for nobody. I'm not lying. I remember telling a boss of mine,
I
you will
want
watch the
I
sun.
want somebody to bust all your files. Even things that was way in the past, and I know about it. I still want to bust the files for everybody else to know. Just because you are like that.
No, it's not about me being like that. I don't deliberately go telling anybody.
No, Ole Lynden is the kind that would
Don't make it sound so
listen,
now.
listen, you could be in a relationship with somebody, the person are unfaithful to you, the person building a house for the outsider, and Lynden will go to the house and say, hey, this is so and so and so and so and so.
No,
No,
all I did was
no,
ask
no,
a
no, no, no.
question.
You.
All I did
Someone messaged me saying, sell out the files fast. I think you know who that is.
I do it.
No, but Lynden is that kind of person, and it's a
No,
friend that you want to make sure you think it through
I'm not going to lie.
before you think through that whole process
No, that
before
Lynden will not lie for you.
before making him your friend. Make sure you're walking circumspect because he will bust all your files.
I'm not going to lie for
I
you.
long for the day
What you know?
when you have a son,
Uh-huh.
not even my daughter, you know, a
A
son
son, eh?
who will be just like you
Mhm.
and will send you mad.
Woman,
You know, we want to be a particular way, right?
keep in mind that'll
Right.
be your son too, eh?
Listen, I get accustomed to you, so it's nothing for me. But when you get a miniature version of yourself,
I'll be fine.
you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Because it's like, okay, we know how we're supposed to be. We know the way the way that we should walk in, right? And we're doing it. But sometimes they come with circumstances.
Mhm.
So you end up losing relationships. You end up getting on somebody else's nerves, like your wife. You know this kind of stuff. And then when you get the miniature version of yourself doing the same thing to you,
Uh-huh.
that's a whole different kind of
Well,
vision.
I'll be fine. I know I'll be fine.
What?
I'll be fine. Look,
All
look,
you
look.
like talk and nonsense. Let us stick on to the topic,
I
yes?
remember telling a former boss of mine, you will watch the sunrise in stripes.
Is you put mouth on the person?
I didn't put mouth on the person. The person knew. I went to them and said, this is going to land you in hot water. You need to stop it.
Listen, and when it landed the person in hot water, you know what Lynden did?
What I
Lynden called the person's spouse.
Hello.
Listen, and said, hello, I want to talk to so and so and so, knowing very well where the person was. Right? Yeah, knowing very well where the person, you're a manipulator. And you know what he said? You know what he said to the person? Stop lying. The person so and so and so. You need Jesus, eh? You need Jesus.
I have Jesus.
Because that is wickedness.
How is that wickedness?
You just wanted to rub it in.
No, I didn't. I did not call
Say,
to rub
I
it
told
in.
you so.
Call to rub
But
it
you
in.
knew where the person was.
No, I did not know for sure. Honestly, I
Mhm.
didn't. I called.
So then why did you say, stop lying, the person so and so?
Because they were trying to hide it. They were
So,
trying.
but when you spoke to the person on the phone, you had to know
You know what?
to tell the person that they were lying.
if this comes up, if let's say you
This
use
thing
my
today is a
friend,
comedy fest now,
let's say you are my
because of
friend,
you.
and you need news, right? You need news,
I'm
and I
listening
call.
news out here.
No, but you are the subject of the news, right? And I call you now. You're my friend. Your name in the news, and I called you as your friend. And your spouse turns and tell, no, he's sleeping. You sleeping. Your husband say you're sleeping. Your name in the news and you sleep. Something wrong with it. Somebody lied. Somebody lied. All right. We have a question here. Is it ever okay to cut off a manipulator? Yes, it's fine to cut off a manipulator. Yes, it is.
Let me go on to my next point
Yes,
because we
next
have
point.
we have just about 15 minutes again
Mhm.
before we wrap up, right? Yeah, so this one is isolation, right? Or we could put it as denial.
Mhm.
They refuse to acknowledge that their behavior has changed and that they were being the manipulator, right? Because they don't want to accept.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, because they're in denial and now they feel attacked, they isolate themselves
Mhm.
so that they would not be around and be in the center of attention and feel.
A lot of the times,
Yeah.
manipulators have secrets, you know.
Mhm.
A lot of the times. And that's the reason why they don't want to be found out. Why are you laughing?
So, the next one, which is a big one,
Mhm.
they compare you to others.
Mhm. Hmm.
I remember, many years ago, I was in a relationship, a very unhealthy relationship, and young and stupid. Um, very unhealthy relationship with someone who was divorced. And no matter what I did, because I was just being myself,
Mhm.
right? Who I knew to be and what I knew to do. And every time I tried to do something, they would say, well, my wife never did this like this.
Look
My
for
wife
trouble now.
never did this
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
My wife used to do this, so so why does you don't do it the same way?
Go back with your wife.
That's what I said. And I was very wrong. I was in the wrong. I should not have said that.
In the wrong relationship, go back with your wife. According to the Bible, reconcile with your wife. All right. Or maybe they decide to come after you even more to prove their innocence. Um, all of that would be to because they're deflecting. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. They're deflecting from their own error and
Mhm.
trying to highlight someone else. Um, it's not even necessarily to prove their innocence, it's to mask their dysfunction and error. So they may even highlight someone or put down someone else or expose someone else in hopes of um, masking their own error and even overinflate someone else's wrong to deflect from their own ill. Yeah.
Mhm. So this next point, I'll say is the same as blackmail. They threaten to share things, right? So, for example, they threaten to share information about you, or for example, they would say, I will tell your mother so and so and so,
Mhm.
or I will tell this one, or they might look at somebody closest to you who would think, okay, this
That they
person,
look up to. And
yeah, this person in the corner, right? So they try to mash up the relationship and show you up in a particular light that not even necessary,
Mhm.
right? Because you confide in this person, probably something that you would have gone through or still dealing with. You confide in this person wants to bust your files now
Mhm.
to damage a relationship that they somewhat jealous of
Mhm.
because they want to have you all to themselves,
Mhm.
and so you have to be under their control all the
Right, right.
time. Which is very, very dangerous. So we need to look at those signs. Yeah. I think I'll just do one more and then we'll go into marriage devotion. So this one is ultimatums,
Hmm.
which is another big one, right?
Mhm.
Um, well, we know what an ultimatum is. So let's say they use guilt trips or ultimatums during a disagreement or fight. A manipulative person will make dramatic statements that are meant
Mhm.
to put you down or
Mhm.
put you in a position where you have no right to be in.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is an ultimatum. So that's another big thing that we need to be mindful of. So even as we wrap up these points, um, I'm gonna remind you if it is that you're hearing these points now and it hits you. Maybe I am in a manipulative relationship, even though you would have said no from before. And now you're hearing all the points. And there are a lot more points, but because of time, we are unable to share it. But even if it is, you're hearing these things now and you start to think to yourself, I think I am in a manipulative relationship. Seek help.
Mhm.
Seek help. If it is you want someone to talk to, feel free to reach out to us as we mentioned before. Send us an email, love and marriage, LOVEAND, marriage, tt@gmail.com. Yeah, and we'll be glad to help you in any way that we can. If it is we're unable to meet up, um, we have many people that we could direct you to.
For you too.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that. But we encourage you, don't stay in this situation because you never know where it could end up, right? You never know where it could end up. So even if it is both of you could come together, seek counseling, so everybody could change in this situation, do it. Yeah, that's what we have counselors for. Find someone that you could trust and open up to. Seek the advice that you need, the help that you need to fix yourself and for the other party to receive help and healing as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, let's head right into our marriage devotion for this evening. Yeah. So this one is entitled How I Need Your Help, Especially in My Home. In the marriage ceremony, after the vows are said, the minister solemnly and reverently remarks, Who God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Is not God the third part in a marriage? Should he not be taken into account in the marriage and in the home that emerges from the marriage? If God joins the couple together at the outset, should not his presence be recognized in the home continually? Many homes are on the rocks today because God has been left out of the domestic picture. With a clash of personalities in a domestic pattern, there must be an integrating force, and the living God is that force. Many couples think that if they have a better home, or they get a better job, or they live in a different neighborhood, their domestic life will be happier. No, not necessarily. The secret of domestic happiness is to let God, the party of the third part in the marriage contract, have his rightful place in the home. So make peace with him, and then you can be a real peacemaker in your home.
Mhm.
Yeah, no one is perfect. So always remember that. And we leave you with a short prayer. In my relationships with those I love, help me to be a peacemaker, Lord. May I always look to you, who is the Prince of Peace. Yeah, and that was your marriage devotion for this evening.
Beautiful. And that's something we always want to work toward, eh?
Mhm.
You know, the Bible says, blessed are the peace makers. Yeah. And not peacekeepers, peacemakers.
Mhm.
Um, I was talking with someone recently, saying that they were saying that they like to make peace, but their mood to do it was to avoid.
Yeah.
That's not making peace. That's trying to keep the peace. And they did it by avoiding. Makers of peace
That's
is
making the person who making you uneasy peaceful and you frustrated.
exactly. So you continue to bend over backward.
Mhm.
Um, before you know it, you have some serious issues with your own back because it can't bend anymore.
Mhm.
And you've really done a number on your bending ability. And now you're frustrated and you still don't have peace. Unfortunately, this is the situation for many. Peacemakers are those who are able to really work through the tough issues. And I'm avoiding using the word confront. Work through the tough issues and build harmony. Build it. So whether it be sitting down and looking at yourself, and even at this point, I want to say, if you know that you are guilty of manipulating your spouse, your children, your friends in any way, seek help.
Yeah.
Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, make peace. Make peace. And making peace talks about something that you form and fashion. When you're making bread, and you have to put the ingredients
Yeah.
in, you have to put in the handiwork and knead the flour and make sure you form the dough. Right. Blessed are the peacemakers. It's something that you do deliberately, something that you nurture, you culture it, and you let it sit and rise and all that. Just consider it like you're making bread. That deliberate, time constrained ability to work through the process to make it. Blessed are the peacemakers. You want to ensure that you're making of peace in your environment, in your relationship, in your home, in your workspace. It's something that you're deliberately doing. It's not going to come about just like that. It's based on intentional behavior, the changing of certain behaviors and cultures and patterns and creating new ones. So, what you do with your family, your spouse, your friends, those things, you have to be very um, intentional about it. Be intentional about it, about the peace that you have, the peace that you have in your marriage, in your friendships, in your family. Be intentional about it. So when you're dealing with tough issues, you are intentional about it. You don't just let it happen. You work through the thing very intelligently. You work
Yeah.
through it, because anybody who is skilled at making bread, it's because they've been practicing.
Yeah.
Anybody who is skilled at making cakes, it's because they've been practicing. They've been doing this thing for a while and they perfected it. So if you're at the place now where you're screwing it up, it's because you've perfected screwing up.
Yeah.
So therefore, think it over, which means change your method. Change your method so that peace is your outcome. So if peace isn't the outcome, it's because you've perfected for too long war and disaster and chaos and dysfunction. So rethink the process, because it's the ingredients that you put in and your method for achieving the result. When that changes, it changes the product. I remember when I first started baking, get a bust Trini's head with it, The first bake I made on a tower was a frisbee. And literally, and I kid you not, I took a hacksaw to cut it. Took a hacksaw and and I said to myself at that point, I will never bake again. I will never bake bread and stuff again. I did. I did say that. And then I went on to making cakes and stuff, which came out good. And I say, all right, let me try my hand back at flour again. And I changed the method and it worked out quite well. I lie?
Mm.
I lie?
Well, that it worked out quite well. Yeah, well, I eating it now.
Right.
Thank God I didn't experience
Thank God.
the big stone.
The breads came out like stone. And it reminded me of that scripture. If your father, if you're hungry and you ask your father for bread, would he give you a stone? Yeah. I said to myself, no way, I ain't going through that.
Do you have a message?
Yes, weapons of warfare. Baked weapons of warfare. Goliath killers, yeah. But now, that's not the case. Thank God I changed my method. So what I get is actually something enjoyable and palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm doing different things with flour now that I've never done before. So just like with kneading flour, blessed are the peacemakers.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage us to keep that image in your mind as you go forward, whether you have been manipulated or you find yourself, after checking, you found yourself guilty of practicing manipulative behavior. Think about it and do what you need to do to create peace.
Yeah.
Because honestly, life is something that it's built where we need people. And we need people in a mutually supportive environment. And in order for that to be so, manipulation will never be the case. We'll always be found out if we're manipulating or we are manipulated. There will always be that discovery moment. No matter how much you try to hide it, there will always be that discovery moment. And time and energy, space would have been wasted simply because you did not do what you had to do. Someone says, last question, do we need to tell manipulators that we are cutting them off? Or why? You can. You can. And I say simply because you want them to consider why. Yeah. Whether what they do with the info is up to them, right? But for the victim going away from it, you want to ensure that you have some time of self discovery. And I say self discovery where you are truthful about the things that made you a victim and ensure that you're not growing into a perpetrator, because that's a real thing. And for the person who find themselves on the perpetrating end of manipulation, that you are considering, hey, I want a more meaningful kind of relationship with people. So therefore, I want to change, and you get the help. Blessed are the peacemakers. I'll leave that with you this evening. Blessed are the peacemakers. Make peace. Knead the flour. Put in the ingredients. Knead the flour. Make sure the method is right for the outcome. That it's soft and nice and tender and silky and everything. Any closing thoughts, Mrs. Mahon?
Love you much. Say that since 11 o'clock.
Someone is saying, very informative as usual, but I wish this particular topic be aired at a special date and time for the young ladies. They can choose wisely and even look out for the red flags. Actually, these are uploaded to YouTube, so you can share it with anyone that you think would would find it useful. And it's not just the audio; it's video, so they can watch at our good-looking faces. Well, at least Mrs. Mahon's own. She's the pretty one.
But you can't be pretty. You cannot be pretty.
Not that pretty guys these days. The world we live in. I'll leave that right there. So we want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. We always appreciate your interaction, your participation. And even for those of you that took a spectative approach this evening, where you just listened, we appreciate you still. I hope that you found the info useful and that we can actually be makers of peace in the world that we have today. Yeah, we have the power to change our environments because we are the ones that create it. The environment is not something separate and apart from us. We emanate and we emulate the kind of environments that we have. So let's be the agents of change in the world that we have today. So this is where we bring to an end another edition of Marriage Mentors. Very informative as usual, very teaching and filled with thought. So until the next one, hi, Miss Ingrid. Hi, again.
Shanae's, good evening to you. Good evening to Dwayne, Mommy Leets, Sherry Shares, Gary. Blessings to all of you, all our silent listeners. Have yourselves a wonderful one. So until the next one, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon saying,
Ciao for now.
love you much.
Ladies,
Gentlemen,
people,
courting couples,
and all our single folk.
we've got something just for you.
Tours.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave.
money,
Disuse.
infidelity,
Singles in the church.
and more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.